I wanted a break, you know? So I decided to go camping. I packed my gear and drove to a national forest. It felt good to disconnect from my busy life as a software engineer. I figured it would be a great way to recharge. I set up my tent near a lake, surrounded by tall pine trees. I'd gone camping before, but never alone. The first night I zipped my tent shut. Everything felt quiet at first, but then I heard rustling outside. It felt too deliberate. I thought it was just the wind, maybe a raccoon. I told myself I was being paranoid. I tried to sleep, but I couldn't shake it. Around midnight, the rustling came back. This time it wasn't just noise. It was this rhythmic thumping like a heartbeat. My heart raced. I tried to ignore it and went deeper into my sleeping bag, but it felt like something was watching me. I got out of my sleeping bag and peeked outside with my flashlight. The beam cut through the darkness, but I only saw trees. I went back inside, telling myself I was imagining things. In the morning, I woke up to something strange. There were symbols etched in the dirt near my tent. They looked alien. I tried to remember if I'd done that, but I hadn't. I thought maybe I bumped into something when setting up camp, but this felt different. I considered leaving, but it was only my second day. I decided to stick it out a bit longer. On the second night, the rustling returned. The thumping got louder, like it was getting closer. I felt uneasy, but I told myself I was safe. I grabbed the flashlight again and stepped outside. The thumping made my heart race faster. I listened closely, scanning the area. Nothing, just shadows dancing between the trees. By the third day, I was a wreck. Packing up felt like a chore. I couldn't take my eyes off the ground. More messages were creeping into the dirt around my campsite. Just random marks and symbols, but they felt wrong. My gut twisted. I felt watched. But by what? It bothered me. Finally, as I turned to head to my car, I froze. A whisper floated through the air. You shouldn't have come here. I turned around quickly, but there was no one, just trees standing tall and silent. My mind raced. Should I have left sooner? I felt trapped. I rushed to my car, shaking. But as I drove away, I glanced back in the rearview mirror. The campsite was just as I left it, but something felt off. I felt like I wasn't alone there. Since then, I can't shake the feeling. What was really out there? I wish I could forget, but I don't think I ever will. I just wanted peace in nature, but I got something else entirely. As I drove away from the campsite, the whisper still echoed in my ears. My heart wouldn't slow, each thump contrasting sharply with the peaceful scenery outside my window. The trees surged past like sentinels, yet they felt more like a warning. I told myself I was just tired, that the stress of work had warped my mind, but deep down, I knew something was off. Once I hit the main road, the unease faded just a bit. I figured I'd made it out. I'd tell myself it was simply an overactive imagination fueled by solitude. I stopped at a small diner to grab a bite and breathe. Sitting at the counter, I tried to focus on the menu, but the symbols in the dirt played through my mind like a broken record. I pulled out my phone and searched for some kind of answers. Camping symbols in the forest. Nothing helpful came up, just links that droned on about local wildlife and nature trails. I frowned, a knot of frustration lodging in my throat. Was it just me? Were the symbols another weird thing to forget? Maybe it was just the stress getting to me. The waitress poured my coffee and shot me a concerned glance. You okay, honey? I forced a smile. Just a long trip. She nodded and moved away, but her eyes lingered, full of pity. I felt exposed, unnerved by the disjointed familiarity of a busy diner after my eerie experience. Back in my car, I tried to shake off the anxiety by playing music, but the songs just took me deeper into my thoughts. I decided to head back home instead of stopping for the night. Driving now felt like a release. The road stretched ahead like the calm before the storm. But then I saw them. As I drove along the winding highway, shadows flitted at the edge of my vision. I glanced in the rearview mirror, half expecting to see something lurking, just trees and darkness. I sighed, chalking it up to my frayed nerves. Then came the lurching sensation like I was being pulled back. I blinked and tightened my grip on the steering wheel. The energy around me shifted. I felt a chill crawl up my spine. Out of nowhere, I saw a figure flash across the road, a shape darting between the trees. My heart stopped. Did I hit something? I slammed on the brakes, the tires screeching against the pavement. Nothing, just silence and darkness. I sat there, catching my breath, eyes scanning the woods. Every instinct screamed at me to drive, but the weight of my curiosity held me back. A deep breath later, I stepped out of the car. The air was thick, heavy with the scent of pine. But there was something else, something sour lingering beneath. I called out, "Hello?" The echo bounced off the trees, swallowed by the night. There was no answer. I hesitated, then turned to head back to my car. That's when I saw it, a faint glimmer by the road, something caught in the moonlight. I knelt down, brushing away the leaves. My heart sank. It was a small metal totem etched with the same alien symbols I'd seen at my campsite. A chill ran through me. How had it ended up here? Adrenaline surged. I stood up, heart racing, the woods closing in around me. I had to leave. But before I could move, I felt a presence behind me, cold and unyielding. I turned slowly, and darkness embraced me. I stood frozen, my breath hitching in my throat. The darkness felt thick, wrapping around me like a heavy blanket. I could almost sense the silhouette looming just behind me, but the shadows betrayed no shape. The forest held its breath, and I couldn't muster a sound. Then, a whisper. It was faint but distinct, curling around my ears like a snake, whispering promises of secrets I couldn't understand. My instincts blared, screaming for me to run, but my legs felt glued to the damp earth. I had to know. I had to turn around. I summoned every ounce of courage and whirled around. Nothing. The trees swayed gently, their leaves rustling, but there was no entity, no figure. Only emptiness stared back. But the whisper lingered like a ghost, teasing me from just out of sight. I gripped the metal totem tighter, the cold surface grounding me amid the growing hysteria. A sudden desire to flee surged within me, overpowering my hesitation. I backed away slowly, keeping my gaze fixed on the trees as I attempted to retreat to my car. Just then, a snap echoed across the silence. Instinctively, I whipped around, eyes wide. A small animal scurried through the underbrush, but it hardly gave me comfort. I took another step back, willing my feet to hurry toward the safety of my vehicle. Then a light flickered deep within the forest. At first I thought it was a trick of the moonlight, but it pulsed rhythmically, drawing me in despite my better judgment. I felt a pull, like an invisible thread connecting me to that strange glow. What could it be? I took a breath and took a step toward it. The moment I did, a chill swept through the air, a bone-deep cold that sent my hairs standing on end. With each footfall closer to the light, the whisper returned, rising in intensity, wrapping around me like 1,000 voices. Panic gripped my heart. I could hardly breathe. Then came a rush of movement from my periphery. I turned again, just in time to see a shadow dart between two trees, darker than the night. My heart raced anew, not just from fear but from realization. This wasn't just my imagination. Something was here. Something alive. I sprinted back toward the car, desperation fueling my movements. Fumbling with the handle, I threw myself inside, slamming the door shut, the sound reverberating through the stillness. My hands shook as I inserted the key into the ignition. The engine roared to life, shattering the oppressive silence. As I sped down the winding road, I kept glancing in the mirrors, half expecting to see something close behind me. Trees blurred past, their trunks like ancient sentinels watching my escape. But in the back of my mind I felt an undeniable urge to understand. What was that light? What did it want? My hands slipped on the wheel. Panic threatened to engulf me, but I pushed it down, forcing myself to focus. I needed answers. I needed to understand the symbols on the totem, the presence in the woods, the whisper calling from the shadows. But just then, something caught my eye as I passed a bend. A figure stood at the edge of the road, silhouetted against the trees. I slammed on the brakes, heart racing. It was too late to turn back now. I was pulled into a labyrinth of questions I might not escape. The figure raised a hand in the darkness, and all at once my world tilted once more. The figure stepped closer, and my heart nearly stopped. In the dim light, I could see it was a woman. She looked disheveled, with tangled hair framing her pale face. Her clothes hung in tatters and her eyes darted around, wild with fear. "What do you want?" I shouted, my voice cracking. I thought about my escape, that I could just slam the car in reverse. But something in her gaze held me there, pinned as if by an unseen force. "Help," she rasped, moving closer. "You have to help me. They're coming." I glanced in my rearview mirror, my breath quickening again. "Who's coming?" I asked, though my voice shook. The weight of her words seeped into my bones. She was just a stranger, but there was desperation pulsing through her. A part of me wanted to believe her. "Please," she pleaded, her voice trembling. "You can't go back. You don't know what's out there." The mention of what's out there sent dread coursing through me. I remembered the whispers, the shadows. I didn't want to imagine what else might be lurking in that darkness. "Get away from the road," I urged, fear pushing me to action. "Get inside." She nodded and backed away from the edge, moving toward the passenger side. I unlocked the doors and she jumped in, slamming it shut behind her with a weighty thud. "Thank you," she gasped, clutching her hands in her lap. I could see the tremors coursing through her. "You have to get out of here." "Where?" I demanded, confusion mixing with fear. "What do you mean? What's coming?" Before she could answer, a noise sliced through the night, a low growl resonating from deep in the woods. My instincts kicked in, and I slammed the car into drive, but the wheels protested against the loose gravel. "Keep your head down," I shouted as I hit the gas, tires screeching. As we sped away, I stole a glance into the trees. In the fading light, I swore I caught a glimpse of movement, dark shapes flitting between the trunks, darting closer, eyes gleaming like shards of glass. Panic crashed over me. "They know you're here," she screamed, her voice high with panic. "They'll follow us." "Tell me what to do," I shouted, gripping the wheel tighter, adrenaline propelling my instincts. But instead of responding, she suddenly went pale, eyes wide with terror. "Stop, just stop the car." I barely had time to register her words before she reached for the handle. In one swift motion, she flung the door open, and before I could react, she jumped out. "No!" I yelled, wrenching the wheel to pull over. My heart dropped as I watched her stumble in the dirt, then disappear into the underbrush. Silence enveloped the car, thicker than before. The growl echoed again, but now it felt much closer. I scanned the woods, paralyzed by uncertainty. Should I go after her? Should I run? And just then I noticed something glinting on the seat where she had been. It was small and metallic like a charm or a sigil. I picked it up, my pulse quickening as I turned it over in my hand. That's when everything went dark. I jolted awake to a cacophony of distorted sounds, splintering twigs, guttural growls, and what felt like whispers brushing against the edges of my consciousness. My heart raced, pumping adrenaline through my veins. Confusion enveloped me. Had I fallen asleep? Where was the woman, the car? I blinked against the darkness, panic flickering inside me as I grasped at the bits of memory that tried to coalesce. I was still in the car. The engine hummed softly, the interior a cocoon of shadows. I gripped the charm tight, the cool metal grounding me in the chaos. A sudden thud on the roof startled me, and I gasped, freezing in place. The sounds outside grew louder. They were getting closer. "Get it off! Get it off!" a voice cried, raw with desperation. The voice sounded like her, but different, distant. I recognized it. It was the voice of the woman. I darted my gaze around, desperate to find the source. A cold wave of dread settled in the pit of my stomach. I twisted the key in the ignition, but the engine sputtered and died. Darkness surrounded me, seeping into the spaces between my breaths. Then I heard it again. The growl, low and rumbling, emanating from beyond the windshield. I could barely make out the shapes moving through the darkness, twisting and turning in the shadows. I needed to get out. The instinct to flee surged through me. I opened the door, the creaking sound cutting through the humid air like a knife. The night felt alive, shifting and breathing, and I stepped out into the cool night. The chill scraped against my skin, heightening my senses. I could hear more clearly now. "Help me!" The voice was closer, panic-stricken, urging me to turn. The woman was somewhere behind me. I searched the darkness, squinting. "Where are you?" I shouted, my voice swallowed by the night. "What's happening?" A snapping sound echoed, making me flinch. Something large moved behind the trees. I turned and spotted it. A hulking shape, shadowy with glowing eyes peering through the branches. My instincts screamed for me to run, but I was rooted to the ground. "Run!" the woman urged, her voice now distant again. Then from the underbrush a hand reached out, appearing like a ghastly specter. I dropped the charm, heart thundering, and rushed forward. Where are you?" "Follow the sound." I took off blindly, tripping over roots, not knowing if I was sprinting towards her or towards the lurking presence. Something brushed against my arm, cold and clammy. I yanked my body away, breath hitching. "Keep going!" I stumbled and fell, hitting the ground hard, my palms buried into the loamy soil. I looked back, and for a fleeting moment, I could see them, glowing eyes sweeping through the forest. They were coming for me. And then I heard her voice once more, closer than ever. "Trust me." That connection was the last thing I needed to hear. I scrambled back to my feet and took off again, my heart hammering. I had to get to her. I had to know what was happening. But then, another growl punctured the air, followed by a dreadful silence. The kind of silence that makes your skin crawl. That's when I felt it. Hot breath against my neck. My legs wouldn't move fast enough. I could feel its presence closing in. The air felt electric as I bolted forward, the darkness swallowing any remnants of the world I knew. My breath came in jagged bursts, each exhale mingling with the pounding of my heart. I couldn't stop. I didn't know how far I had to go or what might be behind me, but that breath against my neck urged me on. I stumbled again, this time, catching myself against a tree trunk. I pressed my ear against the rough bark. I needed to hear her voice again, needed to know I wasn't completely alone in this nightmare. But there was only the rustle of leaves above and the weight of uncertainty pressing down. Suddenly, I heard her again. A faint whisper, barely audible but growing clearer. "This way." I darted in the direction of the sound, rounding the thick trunks, my lungs burning. But a low growl vibrated through the air, more distinct now. It seemed to echo around me, resonating with a primal warning. I glanced back, and there it was, a shadow darting between the trees, its eyes a chilling luminescent glow that pierced the darkness. Panic surged through me, and I pushed myself harder, fueled by the fear of being caught. "Please don't leave me," I called out, desperation lacing my voice. "Where are you?" Just then a flash of movement caught my attention. A figure. I squinted, recognizing it. It was her. Relief flooded my chest, but it quickly turned to dread when I saw the state she was in. Her clothes torn, eyes wide with terror. "Over here," she shouted, extending her hand. But behind her, an enormous shape stirred, hulking and menacing with jaws that opened to reveal glints of sharp teeth. I sprinted toward her, and as I reached for her hand, she pulled me down, hiding us both behind a thicket. I crouched low, breath catching in my throat, terrified of what would happen next. "Where's the car?" I whispered, frantic. "It doesn't matter now. They're hunting," she replied, her voice trembling yet determined. "We need to find the others." "The others?" I felt a new wave of confusion. "What others?" Before she could answer, the growl echoed again, deep and agonizing. The shadow shifted closer, and panic swept me. I glanced around, my mind racing. "What are those things? Why are they after us?" "I don't know," she whispered, glancing at the unseen threat. "But I've seen them before, like shadows. They come when there's fear in the air." Fear vibrated through me like a live wire, tangling with my thoughts. Suddenly, a chorus of howls cut through the silence, sending a chill racing down my spine. The creatures were drawing closer, their chaotic sounds closing in on our small sanctuary. "Stay silent," she hissed, her eyes wide. "We can't let them know we're here." But then I caught movement out of the corner of my eye. Someone, slipped out from between the trees. A figure, disheveled and wild-eyed, staggered into the clearing. My heart sank. It was another person, but the frantic look on his face sent a jolt of fear through me. "Help! We need to run!" he screamed, hair flying around his face. "They're coming!" Before I could process his words, the shadows rushed forward, closing in, and in that moment I realized we weren't just running from something. We were running out of time. The wild-eyed stranger's scream jolted me. My instincts kicked in, and for a moment I was frozen. "Run where?" I wanted to shout, but time wasn't on our side. "Get in the trees," my friend urged, pulling me deeper into the thicket. The moment we peered out, I saw the shadows moving like smoke, quick and restless, shifting through the underbrush. They were close, much too close. "Do you know him?" I whispered, my heart racing as I nodded toward the frantic man. "No," she breathed, "but we need to move." The stranger stumbled again, glancing wildly in our direction. "They're not far. Run!" As he darted away from us, the shadows bounded after him, their growls morphing into a cacophony of rage. I clutched her arm, horrified. "We can't just leave him. He's drawing them to us," she hissed back. "We'll be next. We need to stick together." Rational thought slipped through my fingers like sand. I needed to think fast. "Where are the others you mentioned?" "Just ahead. They're hiding." She illuminated instinct and fear in her eyes. "Follow me!" But when I peered back toward the clearing, the man was gone. The sounds of struggle erupted briefly, a terrible, unyielding gasp. Then everything went silent again. I fielded the sudden void, feeling my stomach drop. "Come on," she insisted, pulling me forward. We maneuvered through the trees, our bodies bent and low like shadows ourselves. The darkness only deepened, swallowing every hope I had left. Then a glimmer caught my eye. Not far off, a small campfire flickered. "There," I pointed. We rushed toward the light, where the faint outlines of figures appeared around the glow. As we got closer, I felt my pulse quicken with relief. But the closer we got, the more I realized something was off. The faces around the fire looked drawn, eyes void of the hope we'd been seeking. They were just as wary of me as I was of them. "Who are you?" one of them called. A woman with dirt smudges streaked across her cheek and fear in her eyes stared back at us. "Have you seen anyone else?" "They're hunting," I gasped, trying to steady my breath. "We barely escaped." "What's hunting?" another voice responded, almost inaudible over the crackling wood. The atmosphere thickened as they all cast anxious glances into the trees, suspicion brewing like a storm. Suddenly, a howl erupted in the distance. It echoed in a way that made my hairs stand on end. The shadows moved again, circling the perimeter of the clearing. "Stay close," the woman warned. "They can sense fear." "What do you mean?" I shouted, panic rising in my chest. But my voice was swallowed by the howl, blending with dread. That's when I saw it. Behind the trees, two glowing eyes settling on us, hungry and alive. A shift in the wind carried the scent of something wild, something primal. The fear in the air was palpable, twisting tight around my throat. Everything came flooding in. Something was out there, something that wanted us. I grasped her hand as we all huddled close together, knowing that whatever was coming, it was only a matter of time before the hunt began. The campfire flickered violently, throwing shadows against the trees like jagged claws. I tightened my grip on my friend's hand, my heart pounding. I could feel the tension in the group, everyone on edge, waiting for something terrible to happen. "Do you have any weapons?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. The last thing I wanted was to sound weak. One of the men, tall and thin with a scraggly beard, shook his head. "We've only got a few pocket knives. They won't help against—" He hesitated, glancing into the dark. "Whatever that thing is out there." "What are you talking about?" I pressed, urgency creeping into my words. "You know what's hunting us?" "No one knows," the woman with dirt on her face replied. "Not really, but I've seen them." She shivered, staring into the fire. "People have disappeared. They leave no trace." The howling rose again, closer this time. My body tensed, a primal instinct telling me to run. But I knew that running could mean separation, chaos that led to doom. I forced myself to focus on the group, We can't just sit here. We need a plan. The others exchanged nervous glances, weighed down by fear. We can't outrun it, the bearded man said. It's faster than us, it's smarter. Then we have to fight, I snapped. At least we might stand a chance together. My voice echoed against the thick trees. What if there's more than one of the women whispered, trembling. What if they're all around us? Panic surged through me again, a wave that threatened to pull me under. I scanned the fringes of the campfire light, searching for the glowing eyes, but the shadows blended together, hiding whatever horrors lurked just out of sight. Then I noticed something beyond our little circle. Movement. A figure slipped between the trees, slick and dark. My breath hitched. Did you see that? I pointed, my finger trembling. See what? A man whispered back, his voice low. Over there, I cried, nearly leaping from my spot. By the trees. The group strained to see what I was indicating, fear breaching our temporary calm. The figure darted again, faster this time, and I caught a glimpse of fur. It was low to the ground, predatory grace wrapped in midnight hues. Panic erupted and the fire flickered with our collective shift. Get ready, it's coming, someone yelled. As if to answer, a roar echoed through the woods, deep, guttural, primal. Don't move, the bearded man ordered, but it was too late. The horror of what was lurking in the dark had settled into our bones, terror overwhelming sense. Just then, another howl pierced the air, this one closer than before. I could see the fear reflected in everyone's eyes. There was no escaping it, no hiding anymore. My heart raced. We have to stand our ground, I urged as the shadows moved. But inside, doubt roared louder than the beast. Whatever happens, don't run. Then everything went still, and that's when I saw it. A massive silhouette against the moonlight, moving slowly, deliberately, towards us. A chill gripped my spine. I realized with dread that we weren't just the hunted anymore. We had become part of the hunt. The creature emerged from the shadows, towering and menacing. Its eyes glimmered like wet stones in the dim light, fixated on us. My breath hitched in my throat as the oppressive silence turned unbearable. The fire crackled, casting erratic light, illuminating the raw terror on my friends' faces. What do we do? Someone finally whispered, panic creeping into their voice. Stay quiet, I replied, not knowing if I could manage that myself. I could feel my heart hammering in my chest, a steady drum urging me to flee. But I held myself still. The silhouette stepped closer, muscles coiling under fur that rippled like water. It was a predator, pure and simple. My instincts screamed to move, to escape. But I looked around, meeting the eyes of the group, and found resolve. Light the fire, I urged, my voice rising above the mounting dread. We need to keep it strong. If there's more than one, we need to signal that we'll fight. The bearded man scrambled to gather more wood. Help me, he said, urgency spilling from his words. I jumped up to assist, grabbing branches and tossing them into the blaze. As the flames roared higher, the creature paused, its expression morphing from curiosity to something darker. It let out a low growl that vibrated in my bones, a warning. Is it scared? A woman at the edge of the group asked, her voice pitifully hopeful. Or angry, I countered, more to myself than anyone else. My fingers trembled as the shadows danced wildly around us. The forest felt alive, whispering secrets that only it understood. I shot a glance at the trees encircling us. The darkness beyond the light felt like it was closing in. Then, without warning, another howl erupted, this time from the opposite direction. My heart dropped. Quick! We need to spread out, I shouted. Don't let them surround us. The suggestion sent a jolt through the group. We began moving in a circle, keeping the fire at our backs. The erratic flames illuminated short bursts of frenzied motion. I caught sight of the creature retreating momentarily, as if assessing the situation. I exchanged a glance with the thin man. Do you think we can outrun it? His face fell. I don't know. Before I could respond, the trees behind us rustled violently. Fear manifested in a wave, gripping my throat. Stay together, I yelled. Just then, a horrific screech pierced the air, a sound that churned my stomach. The creature lunged forward, propelled by raw fury. I felt the ground shake beneath us, the vibration working its way through the loamy earth into my bones. We scattered instinctively, moving away from the flames. In the chaos, I grabbed my friend's hand, and we ran deeper into the shadows, the crackle of the fire fading behind us. Something flickered in my peripheral vision. A glint of light. I skidded to a halt, pulling my friend back with me. "What's that?" I pointed, my voice a harsh whisper. It was a clearing, bathed in moonlight, revealing something unnatural resting on the ground. My pulse quickened. A large, bone-like structure lay half buried beneath the leaves. "Is that—" my friend stammered. "Yeah, it looks like—" my voice faltered. "What we think it is." Before I could finish, the growling intensified, and I felt the presence creeping in again. The shadows began to shift once more. "Whatever happens, don't let go," I said, squeezing her hand tighter. A branch snapped behind us. The hunter was back, and this time, we had no choice but to confront what awaited. The growling echoed around us, a primal symphony of fury reverberating through my bones. The shadows, thick with malice, seemed to ripple in anticipation as I stood paralyzed, heart racing in my chest. But this time, we found ourselves cornered against the relic of what once was, a massive bone structure, a part of something ancient and terrifying. "What do we do now?" My friend's voice trembled, eyes wide with dread. I glanced around, desperate for something, anything, to turn the tide in our favor. We have to use this," I stammered, pointing at the bone. It could have been a remnant of a great beast long forgotten, but now it felt like a desperate weapon. "If we can use it to defend ourselves." "Defend ourselves?" she echoed, but terror laced her words. "Against what?" Suddenly a shadow loomed above us, dark and full of hunger. I whipped around, and there it was, the creature rising like a nightmare taking form, the forest trembling beneath its weight. Gleaming eyes fixated on us, its growl vibrating through the air and freezing my breath in my throat. "Over here," I shouted, waving my arms, hoping to distract it. My instincts kicked in, and I felt the primal call to survive surge through me. The creature paused, assessing its prey, and I seized the moment. "We need to take a stand. Grab whatever you can." As I fumbled for anything useful, she scrambled by my side, eyes darting nervously. "What if there are more?" "They sense fear. Don't show it," I yelled, the panic pushing me. I saw her nod, a flicker of determination igniting in her gaze. The bone structure stood dauntingly in front of us, an eerie shelter leading deeper into the earth. The ground felt alive, pulsating as the creature stomped closer, dark and wild. I felt a mixture of intense dread and determination churn inside me. We were not just running anymore. "Together," I urged her, taking a deep breath. We both crept closer to the structure, stepping into the shadows it cast. I felt the weight of her hand in mine, grounding me as we prepared to face the looming terror. The creature let out another growl, a deep rumble that seemed to vibrate through the very air we breathed. It was more than anger. It was a warning. With a quick, charged decision, we both brandished a piece of the bone, our expressions hardened with resolve. Before I could react, the creature lunged at us, jaws snapping, teeth bared, and we swung the bone instinctively. The crack of our makeshift weapon met its flesh with a sickening force, and it staggered back, momentarily stunned. "Now!" I shouted, using my adrenaline as fuel. We had to take advantage. We pushed forward, slashing through the air with the bone, breaking through its dark fog. It shrieked, the sound sending chills through my core. In that moment, everything felt surreal. The chaos around us, the shadows swirling as if they were beings themselves. But behind that fear, a spark ignited. Was this fight just instinct or something deeper? It was impossible to tell. Then the shadows shifted. I barely caught sight of a second creature flanking us, more agile. A flash of darkness darting towards my friend. "Watch out!" I yelled, adrenaline surging as I thrust the bone toward her. We moved back, closer to the bone structure, using it as a barrier. But the creature was relentless. It lunged again. I closed my eyes for a moment, the growl so close that I could feel its breath. And then suddenly, silence descended. When I opened my eyes, the creature paused just before us, something changing in the moment. Was it intrigued or conflicted? Time slowed, the shadows thickened, and I caught a glimpse of movement beyond the clearing. There were others, figures obscured yet watching, as if they were waiting for something to unfold. "Hold on, they're watching," my friend said, her voice cracking with realization. Suddenly, all at once, the creatures backed away, lured by some unseen force or a decision of their own. The growling faded as they retreated into the shadows, and a heavy silence fell. "We're alive," I breathed, disbelief washing over me. We survived. But then the chilling truth sank in. "For now," I whispered, scanning the tree line for threats, knowing full well those shadows were still out there, lurking just beyond sight. Endless mysteries lay before us, questions traveling deeper into the dark than I could comprehend. I clutched my friend's hand tighter, looking into her eyes, searching for answers. But the reality loomed larger than we could process. "What are they? What does this all mean?" She shook her head, still wide-eyed, still scared. But somewhere amid the fear, I saw a determination mirrored within her. "I don't know," she murmured softly, "but we have to keep moving." As we retreated toward the faintest glimmers of the campfire left behind, and the sense of impending danger swirling in the dusk, I kept glancing back, sensing the pull of the darkness and the whisper of the shadows beckoning. Questions lingered unanswered in the air, thick with uncertainty. Were those creatures the hunters, bound by instinct, or were they guardians protecting something far more profound? I didn't know if I was ready to face that reality, but I realized then that survival was only the beginning. "Let's go," I said, my voice steadier than before. Together we stepped out of the shadows, determined to find our way back, unsure of the path ahead, yet aware that whatever lay waiting for us in the dark would come again. It changed everything, and somehow it left me wondering if it ever really ended at all.